A live look at the markets this hour. We can see the Dow is up slightly, really just 33 points at this point. It's all because of this, and that is this huge tariff charge. Remember that? Well, in a bombshell ruling, a federal court blocked the White House from implementing that list. The U.S. Court of International Trade will freeze the president's sweeping 10% tariffs on our top trading partners. It includes that separate set of tariffs levied against China, Mexico, and Canada. Now, back in April, the president unleashed what he called his reciprocal tariffs without help from Congress. The White House justified that with this law. It is the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, or IEEPA. It gives the president the power to regulate imports during certain emergency situations. But yesterday, a three-judge panel rejected the government's interpretation of that law. Now, keep in mind, these numbers on your screen were the original set of tariffs placed on these countries. The Trump administration has since hit the pause button to make room for negotiating a new deal. And breaking moments ago, President Trump's Justice Department says they'll go to the Supreme Court if the appeals court declines to provide interim relief in the coming hours. We've got team coverage tracking all of this for us. In moments, CBS News contributor Javier David will break down what this means for your wallet. But first, let's go to CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe for what this means for the president. Ed, good to see you today. You know, this was a key campaign promise, now blocked. So if you are in the team of that White House, what is your next move here?
Well, I'm not an analyst or an employee of the White House, but we do know, as you just mentioned, they plan to appeal this now to higher courts to see whether or not this essentially legal fight over when and how exactly a president can implement an emergency tariff can get sorted out by the Supreme Court. When this started, it was always anticipated someone would sue, as several states did, and that ultimately the Supreme Court would be asked to clarify what is the definition of a national security that allows the president to chart out exactly what tariffs he would put on different countries. The other thing we know is negotiations with countries continue. CBS News has learned today that Vietnam, for example, is set to sign about $2 billion in import agreements with the United States next week. A delegation is coming here to sign those agreements, and they're going to do so in Des Moines and in Columbus, Ohio, to sort of reiterate how widespread Vietnam's economic impact is on this country and that it spreads out across the industrial Midwest. Those talks continue with other countries as well, India, South Korea. There was the announcement of a framework, at least with the United Kingdom, a few weeks back, and the administration insists that work will continue.
All right, Ed. Well, if you can, please stand by for us, because we'll be talking to you again shortly. At this moment, though, I want to bring in CBS News contributor Javier David. He is also the business editor at the Dallas Morning News. Javier, thank you for joining us. What kind of reaction are you hearing to this ruling from the business world?
Look, the business world always hated these tariffs. It's sort of a brand new day for them. They've hated it since day one. Markets tend to rally whenever the president walks them back. The administration, as Ed just mentioned, may try to keep sort of forcing the issue, and they're going to appeal. But, it may be time to let this one go. There have been a number of analysts that said this is the perfect out for the Trump administration if they want to take it. It's just the tariffs in general, they're objectively bad for investors. They're bad for businesses, and it's been bad for everyday consumers. So there's this meme that's been floating around the taco trade. It means that Trump always chickens out. He tends to hate bad press. He certainly hates what that acronym implies about him being less than strong. Maybe it'll force him to rethink the strategy, but certainly this is what markets want. They just want these tariffs gone, off the table, and for the administration to find a sort of graceful way to save face at this point.
Yeah. You mentioned American consumers earlier, so let's talk about that. Can you tell us what this means for them? Because we've seen prices on websites like Temu and Shein basically going up. So should consumers basically expect to see that price will either go down, or is it going to stay the same now that it's officially increased?
They can expect some relief, but it's not as much as they would get, given that businesses have already baked in a lot of these costs ahead of time into their prices. And you keep getting this roller coaster effect, like the tariffs are on again and the tariffs are off again, in order to sort of get ahead of what they think is going to be more expensive for them as businesses. They already have sort of preemptively hike the price. So you're going to still see high prices, but they won't be as ridiculous as, doubling or tripling of prices be based on a 145% tariff level. But, we're still operating at a baseline of at least somewhere between 10 and 30% higher on most international goods. So you're still not really feeling the relief that you probably would or should.
Of course. That uncertainty, Javier, it continues clearly. So we shall wait and see what comes next. Javier David, thank you so much for joining us today.